The life that took place in the unassuming and peaceful town of Willow Creek, Oklahoma, moved at such a sluggish pace that even the sound of the leaves rustling seemed to be intentional movements. The town was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, and secrets were as uncommon as a snowfall in July. It was the kind of place because it was nestled between rolling hills and a winding river. On the other hand, everything changed when a puppy named Max became the focus of a mystery that would eventually reveal a sinister secret that had been concealed beneath the bucolic veneer of the town. Mr. Max was not your typical dog. He was a scruffy mongrel with golden hair and brown eyes that could be described as soulful. He had suddenly appeared in town one day, seemingly out of nowhere. The people of the town initially thought that he was simply another stray, but Max had an unusual tendency that gradually drew their attention to him. Every single day, without fail, he would trot to the edge of the river, right where the water met the grassy bank, and lie down in the exact same spot. He would do this without fail, as if he were guarding something or waiting for someone. Max was always there, regardless of the weather, whether it was hot or cold. In the beginning, folks thought it was cute and adorable. At the same time as they were throwing him pieces of food or attempting to entice him away with treats, they would exclaim, "Look at that loyal dog." Despite this, Max did not budge. To show his appreciation, he would eat the food and wag his tail, but he would never leave his position. Even when the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Max did not let up in his determination. The inhabitants of the town started to feel uneasy as a result of his continuous presence. What made the location so unique and noteworthy? How come he wouldn't run away? As curiosity grew into mistrust, rumors started to circulate about the situation. People who had lived there for a long time recalled legends about the river's past, such as how it had been used as a dumping ground for bootleggers during the Prohibition era, or how it was said to be haunted by the spirit of a woman who had perished there many years ago, but none could provide an explanation for Max's peculiar behavior. A few of people even started to think that the dog was cursed and a sign of impending misfortune. However, nobody had the courage to bother him. An individual by the name of Lily, a young girl who had developed feelings for Max, made the decision to take matters into her own hands one day. A bowl of water and a blanket were brought to him by her, and she kneeled down next to him while she rubbed his fur. "Boy, what are you protecting?" she asked in a hushed voice. It appeared as though Max was attempting to convey something to her that she was not quite able to comprehend as he gazed at her with those profound and perceptive eyes. Around that time, Lily became aware of a peculiar odor that was emanating from the earth under him. The odor was so faint that it was almost invisible. Despite the fact that it had a trace of something else that she couldn't place, it had a metallic and earthy quality, similar to rust and damp dirt. The news was relayed to Lily's parents, who then informed the authorities in their community. Despite their initial skepticism, the police decided to conduct an investigation. When all was said and done, it wasn't every day that the behavior of a dog was sufficient to trigger a call to the station. At the time of their arrival, they discovered Max still resting in the same spot, watching them with an attitude that was composed and almost resigned. Max simply stood up, moved a few steps back, and sat down, his eyes never leaving the area. The officers attempted to shoo him away, but Max defied their efforts on multiple occasions. A large throng gathered as the metal teeth of the excavator began to bite into the ground. The police had ordered for an excavator to be brought in. A sense of both eagerness and fear permeated the atmosphere. Despite the fact that nobody understood what to anticipate, everyone had the feeling that something was going to change. The excavator continued to dig deeper and deeper until the operator all of a sudden stopped digging. While his face was pale, he hopped out of the taxi and motioned for the officers to approach closer to him. There was a metal box that had corroded and was buried just a few feet below the surface down there. As a result of years of exposure to moisture and corrosion, its edges had been rusted after gently prying it open. The officers discovered something that sent shockwaves through the crowd with what they discovered inside. A variety of objects was found within the box. These included a little photograph of a young couple that had become faded over time, a locket that had the initials EM etched on it, a stack of letters that were tied together with a ribbon, and most eerie of all, a human bone. An immediate investigation was launched as a result of the discovery. The location was roped off and forensic specialists were brought in to investigate. In the course of their ongoing excavation, they discovered other bones in addition to pieces of clothes and other personal pieces of property. Over time, it became abundantly evident that this was not a typical burial place. Rather, it was a grave, and it had been in that location for many years. The residents of the community were outraged. Who was laid to rest up there? What was the reason that Max had been so steadfastly guarding the location? As the investigation progressed, the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together the way they should have. A tragic love story was exposed by the letters that were found in the box. Emma and Michael, the young couple depicted in the photograph, had been profoundly in love with one another, but were not allowed to be together by their respective families. Despite the fact that they had intended to flee, Michael had vanished on the night that they were going to make their getaway. Emma had spent years looking for him, but she had no idea that he had been murdered and buried beside the river that she had been searching for. However, the most surprising revelation occurred when Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman in the area, stepped forward with a confession. She had been a young child at the time, but she recalled watching her uncle, a guy with a fiery temper, argue with Michael by the river on that fateful night. Michael was the one who was involved in the argument. She had never raised her voice because she was too terrified of what might occur. After a number of decades had passed, the truth had at long last been revealed. As for Max, nobody was able to provide an explanation for how he had been aware of the burial. There was a school of thought that held that he was a reincarnation of Michael, who had come to guard his own remains. A few of people believed that he was nothing more than a dog who possessed an exceptional sense of loyalty and intuition. Max became a hero in Willow Creek, a symbol of endurance and the power of exposing the truth, regardless of the circumstances surrounding his arrival there. Michael was ultimately given the dignified funeral that he deserved when the town paid tribute to him by holding a memorial service. Lily and her family had Max, who is now a well-known figure in the community, adopted. He continued to make occasional trips to the river, but he did not remain in that location for an extended period of time. His task was over, and the secret that he had been keeping hidden for such a long time was at last put to rest. And so it came to pass that the tranquil town of Willow Creek went back to its slow and peaceful rhythm, but the tale of Max and the riverbank grave would be told for generations to come. It would serve as a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary secrets can lie hidden, waiting for the right moment or the right dog to bring them to light. As the days grew into weeks after the finding of Michael's remains, Willow Creek found itself struggling with a variety of feelings inside its community. At the same time that a heavy fog crept over the town, relief, sorrow, and an odd sense of closure settled over it. Despite the fact that the memorial service for Michael had brought the town closer together, it had also brought to light long-concealed secrets and old wounds. As the tale of Emma and Michael's sad love affair became the stuff of local folklore, it was told in hushed tones at the cafe and recounted around campfires by the river throughout the community. It seemed as though Max, who is now a much-loved member of Lily's family, was able to detect the change in the spirit of the town. Despite the fact that he no longer spent his days lounging by the river bank, he would occasionally make his way down to the water's edge, his ears pricked up as if he were listening to something that only he could hear. Lily frequently followed him, her young mind brimming with inquiries concerning the histories of the past and the mysteries that continued to linger in the atmosphere. In the midst of a crisp autumn afternoon, Lily and Max made their way to the river. The leaves were turning all shades of gold and crimson at the time. The tracks left behind by the excavator were still evident in the earth, serving as a vivid reminder of the secrets that had been buried there. During the time that Max was sniffing about the area, Lily was sitting on a large boulder with her legs hanging over the side. Max's tail was just lazily wagging. During the time that she was watching him, her mind began to wander to the tales that her parents had told her about Emma and Michael. She inquired with a low tone, "Max, do you believe there is more to the story than what you've told me?" It appeared as though the dog was thinking over her inquiry as he glanced up at her with his head cocked to one side. Then, without any prior warning, he walked a few feet away and started scratching the ground with his paws. After making a frowning face, Lily rose up and brushed dirt off of her jeans. "Boy, what exactly is it?" Max had resumed his digging, his motions becoming increasingly intense. To satisfy her inquisitiveness, Lily knelt down next to him. She reached out and wiped aside the loose earth, her fingertips brushing across something that was both firm and soft. It was a second box, which was smaller than the first one but had the same amount of wear and tear from the passage of time. Her breath froze in her throat as she realized that it was not a rock. The excitement in her voice was palpable as she cried, "Max, you found something." Despite the fact that her hands were shaking with excitement, she delicately unearthed the box. The surface of the wooden container was weathered and splintered, and it was a plain container. Despite her half-expectation that someone would show up and urge her to stop, the riverbank was completely empty as she took a quick check around. She took a deep breath before attempting to pry open the lid. Her eyes widened in awe as she looked through the assortment of objects that were contained therein. There was a small wooden figurine of a dog that had been skillfully carved, a folded piece of paper that had become brittle with age, and a delicate silver ring that had a gemstone that had been missing for a very long time. As she unfolded the paper, Lily's hands shook as she revealed a note written in a graceful handwriting, style that looped around itself. "If you happen to come across this, please keep in mind that love is never truly lost. The love that Michael and I shared was so powerful that it could not be severed by anything, not even death." The fact that you are reading this indicates that our narrative has been presented in its entirety. Kindly ensure that our memory is preserved, and to the dog that watches over this location, I am grateful. As far as I can remember, you were never only a dog. Over the course of reading the sentences, Lily's eyes welled up with tears. She turned her attention to Max, who was seated in silence next to her, watching the box with his eyes fixated on it. The intensity in her voice caused her to utter the words, "You were a part of their story, weren't you?" In a hushed whisper, a quiet whine came out of Max's mouth, as if he were in agreement. She put the contents back in the box with great care and then closed the top, all the while her mind was already racing with questions. This box had been buried by whom? Could it have been Emma who had left behind a parting message for the subsequent years? In addition, how did Max know that it was there? The more she pondered it, the more she came to the conclusion that many secrets were never intended to be comprehended in its entirety completely. Lily brought the box back to her house and presented it to her parents, who were just as surprised as she was by the discoveries it contained. They made the decision to disseminate it throughout the community because they felt that Emma's message needed to be heard. When the box was brought to the local museum, it was put in a glass case with the photos and letters that were discovered during the first discovery. It became a reminder that love and loyalty could endure even the most difficult of times, and it became a symbol of optimism and perseverance simultaneously. Max, on the other hand, became a well-known figure in the community, and his notoriety extended well beyond the confines of Willow Creek. In order to get a sight of the dog that had found a secret that had been kept hidden for decades, people traveled from surrounding villages. Max, on the other hand, did not appear to be bothered by the attention and was just glad to spend his days with Lily and her family. As time went on, Willow Creek's way of life reverted back to its previous, more tranquil rhythm. Even as it continued to flow, the river's waters carried with them the reverberations of the past. Growing up, Lily never forgot the lessons she had learned from Max and the stories of Emma and Michael. She never forgot the teachings she had learned. When she was with Max, she would frequently go to the river bank, which had become a place of contemplation and remembering for her. One evening, Lily and Max were sitting by the river as the sun was setting below the horizon, throwing a golden glow over the water where they were sitting. As she gently stroked his fur, her thoughts wandered back to the day that they had discovered the second box earlier. Her voice was sweet as she whispered, "Max, you are a unique dog. This town, as well as myself, is now at rest because of you." Max gazed up at her, his eyes brimming with a level of wisdom that was not overt. At that precise instant, Lily experienced a profound sense of thankfulness, not only for Max, but also for the community and for the never-ending strength of love and commitment. She realized that the tale of Max and the riverbank burial would continue to be told, serving as a tribute to the secrets that connect us all together. This realization came to her as the stars began to shine in the night sky.